Okay, everyone, please be seated. Today I want to briefly review the causes of global warming, and then I'll move on to its effects, which is the main topic for today. So just to review, what are these human activities that are pushing up temperatures? There are four I'd like to mention briefly. Firstly, as you know, the biggest cause of global warming today is burning fossil fuels. Burning fossil fuels, that is coal, oil and gas, accounts for about 95% of all carbon dioxide added to the atmosphere by human activity. Most of this CO2 comes from burning coal to produce electricity, but this is closely followed by CO2 emissions from burning oil for industry and transportation. Another activity that results in increased greenhouse gases, one that we haven't talked about much yet, is farming. Farming can result in increased release of methane. Farm animals, like sheep and cattle, expel gas, and this gas is methane. That's methane. Now, the problem with methane is that although there isn't a lot of it, it is extremely potent, that is strong. It has 21 times the warming ability of CO2. Finally, other land management practices like deforestation and using fertilisers also add CO2 to the atmosphere. Forests store carbon, so when we cut them down for timber, we lose this valuable capacity. And fertilisers, which are used to help increase growth in plants, also increase global warming, because these fertilisers are rich in nitrogen, and nitrogen can trap 300 times more heat than CO2. Now, let's move on to the effects of this warmer atmosphere caused by anthropogenic increase in greenhouse gases. Remember that word, anthropogenic? To remind you, it means caused by humans. The most well-known result is the rise in sea levels. As the massive Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets melt, we are seeing the beginning of that rise, around 20 centimetres in the 20th century. A complete collapse of the ice sheets would, however, result in something like a 6 to 7 metre rise in sea levels. That would cover many densely populated coastal regions and many low-lying countries like Bangladesh. The ice cover at the North and South Poles is important in another way too. The white colour from the ice reflects heat away from the Earth, and as it melts, it no longer has this beneficial effect, so global warming increases even more. Another much talked about effect is the increase in the intensity of natural events such as tropical storms and cyclones, which develop over warm oceans. These may become more intense, with more flooding and more damage. Also, according to the research published in the journal Nature, the wind speeds associated with these storms have significantly increased since 1981. This means that the storms can cause more damage. Very high winds also make fires much more destructive because the winds cause the fires to move much more rapidly. Another problem could be that fresh water becomes much more scarce. Rising temperatures will mean weather patterns will change. Although there could be flooding in some areas, many places will become hotter and drier. Also, melting snow from mountains is a major source of water for some countries. As snow and ice decreases, there will be less water in the rivers. Many poor countries already suffer from the scarcity in water, and for them, the situation will become much worse. Global temperature increases are already having an effect on animals and plants, but the rapid rise predicted within the next 100 years means that the change will be too fast for most of them to adapt. This could result in widespread extinction of many species. We can see an example in what is happening with polar bears. One research scientist, Martin O'Bard, has found that polar bears are getting thinner because they have less ice to live on and less fish to eat. Scientists worry that if sea ice disappears altogether, the polar bears will become extinct. They are just one example. In fact, there are many, many examples. There is one more effect I'd like to mention, but it's by no means the end of the list, and that is the effect of warming water on marine life, particularly our beautiful coral reefs. The more ocean temperatures rise, the more acidic they become. This increased acidity will tend to harm the corals and seashells which make up the reefs. Okay, everyone, I think the message for today is quite clear. Climate change is a serious issue for the planet. Now, for next week, you need to read the next chapter in the textbook, pages 225 to 256.